I had a client drop off this Strat style guitar for some work, and now I'm gonna refret it. This guitar was hand-built specifically for my client about 40 years ago, and while that's very cool, it does also lend itself to some issues that I will touch on throughout this video. But the first thing I have to do is get these old frets out. I will also post affiliate links in the caption for all of the tools that I use in this video. Using those links is very helpful for me in continuing making videos like this one. I apply heat to the frets before pulling them to help soften the surrounding wood and any adhesive that may be in the slots. Just pulling them out cold can lead to major tear out around the slots, and I don't want to lose any wood when working on a guitar. The solder helps to more efficiently transfer that heat throughout the fret so that I can minimize the time that I have to hold the iron to the frets. These fret slots were flooded with glue, but they were also so wide that heating in this case wasn't truly necessary. I continued heating the frets regardless, just to be extra safe. The radius on this neck was a bit out of whack, so to help the new frets to seat better, I had to sand it with a radius sanding block. Before sanding it down, I wanted to make sure that the neck was perfectly straight, so I adjusted the truss rod before marking off the entire face of the fingerboard with a pencil. These marks will help me to see when the entire surface has made contact with the sandpaper. Once the pencil is all gone, then I will know that I have sanded enough to have a consistent radius. Once I had the radius sanded in, I got to cleaning out the fret slots. Like I said in the beginning of the video, these slots were flooded with glue, and I needed to get that glue out. I used a lighter to heat up my fret saw. This helped me to soften the glue and pull it out without having to spend a lifetime slowly chipping away at it. It also helped to keep the saw from jumping out of the slot and risking damaging the fingerboard. This process was pretty slow, but when doing a job like this, you want to make sure you're taking the proper steps to get the best results possible. After taking the time to get the board all prepped, it was time to start cutting the fret wire. This wire is radius to be a bit tighter than the fingerboard itself. If you're working with stainless, you want the radius to match the fingerboard exactly, but when working with a softer material, such as nickel, over-radiusing helps to get better seated frets. I measured the wire against the fingerboard and cut it a bit wider than I needed just to give me a little more material to work with so that I don't have to worry about getting everything perfectly lined up. As I cut the wire, I placed it in my fret holder so that I don't lose track of which fret goes where. Now it's time to start getting the new frets in. I start by tapping in the ends with a fretting hammer just to get them to stay in place. Then spread some paste wax along the edges of the fret. This wax will help in the removal of the CA glue that doesn't make it down into the fret slots or any that may squeeze out when I clamp the fret in. I'm using my StewMac fret jaws with my Jeremy Edwards Fractal fret press insert. These tools are both awesome quality of life upgrades for anybody who does a lot of refrets, but a hammer will usually suffice for this job. As I mentioned before, these fret slots were pretty wide. Some were still narrow enough to hold onto the fret tangs, but some need a little help. This fret crimping tool worked great for widening the tangs just enough for the fret to bite into the wood without me having to do any major reconstructive work to the guitar. I continued on with this, crimping frets when needed, until I had all of the new frets in place. Now it's time to flush up all of the fret ends. This flush cutter is great, but the process always leaves sharp metal bits floating around my workshop for me to find later. I combat this by making a little tape net to catch all of the offcuts. Once the fret ends are all cut down, there is still a sharp edge ready to slice up any hands that come near this neck. I file everything flat with a flat file, and then introduce a bevel with an angled file. These files get the neck 90% there, but I still go in with a smaller file to clean up any lingering tangs or fret ends that may be sticking out slightly. I'm looking to be able to run my hand up and down the neck without really feeling the fret ends at all. Anytime new frets are installed, you will have unlevel frets. Fret material has some variety in height, so a level and crown will always follow. I made sure that the neck was perfectly straight and then marked all of the fret tops off with a blue Sharpie. This will be rubbed off as I sand down the frets with my leveling beam, which will give me a good visual indicator of my progress. I also make sure to check with the fret rocker just to be sure that everything is level as I go. Once all of the frets are level, I tape off the 12th fret and add a fall away. The tape puts the beam on a slight decline, which will have each fret slightly lower than the one before it from the 12th fret on. This allows for low action while still giving the strings room to vibrate in the upper register. It also allows for your fast solos and big bends in the upper register to play through without any buzzing or choking out. After all of that sanding, I'm left with some pretty flat frets. This guitar will play without buzzing as is, but in order for it to sound good, a crown needs to be reintroduced. Flat frets change the string's takeoff point from the center of the fret to the front, effectively changing the scale length. While the difference in length is very small, it can be enough to make your chords sound just a little off. This crown is introduced by using a fret crowning file. There are many different kinds available, but I prefer a 3-corner file because it gives me more control and allows me to see how much material I take off with each pass. I file each side of the fret evenly until I am left with a thin blue line down the middle of the fret. When crowning, you want to leave the top of the fret untouched so that all of the work you just spent leveling does not have to be redone. Once all of the frets are recrowned, there is still a little bit of work to be done on the fret ends. The filing and beveling did great to get everything flush, but left a few sharp edges that can still catch a player's hand. A few light passes with my fret end file works quickly to round off those sharp corners, and after a little buffing, they won't pose any more problems. Now all that's left to do is to get the frets polished up. All of this filing has left quite a bit of chatter, and having smooth frets is huge for smooth playing. You don't want to hear your strings scraping on metal when you're ripping into your solo, and you don't want the friction of any file marks shortening your strings' lives. I start off by using sandpaper wrapped around a foam block, and work my way up ascending grits from 400 to 800. I then grab my micro mesh pads and continue the process on the fret ends from 1500 to 12,000. These pads would also work fine for fret tops, but I find that I get a better result with my FRTLZR Polishing Kit. These also use micro mesh, but buffing the fret long ways has always left me with cleaner results. I also went ahead and conditioned the fingerboard since it has been sitting for some 10 years without any humidity control and just endured a lot of sanding and cleaning. Before I show the final result, I just want to thank you for sticking through this far. If you enjoyed watching my process, then please consider liking and commenting on the video. If you want to see more content like this, then please subscribe and hit the bell. These small actions do a lot for the page and allow me to keep making videos like this one. Also a reminder that I have affiliate links to all of the tools that I used in the caption below, just in case you want to add any of these tools to your own shop. After many hours of work, this is the result. I still need to get some wiring done and to set the guitar up, but this is a huge upgrade in playability. If you like this video, YouTube thinks that you will also like these ones on the screen. If you have the time, maybe check one out.